Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are you all doing, everyone? It's been a little while, hasn't it? I know that last week I did skip it because, well, there hasn't been a lot of animation news that's been going around, and, already we got a new fish. Thank you so much, Meta Ralph. But anyways, last week I did skip it, mainly because we didn't necessarily have a whole lot of major news, especially animation news, to go and discuss. And on top of that, even what's been happening in my personal life, during that time, there's been a lot of major renovations, like the renovations in general that has brought my whole setup to this room here. It really got a bit more extreme. Like there was a lot more than usual, so that's why I had to go and set the podcast aside in the meantime, so that it wouldn't be disrupted by all the work that was going on. But anyways, now that that is done, we are back over here, and holy crap, this week we have received a whole bunch of not just animation news, but a whole bunch of crazy animation news. The kind that is just absolutely shocking, and the kind that really is worth discussing over here. Now, there are going to be some that they could be angering, they could be upsetting, and all that kind of stuff. But I will say the one benefit from those is that they will make quite an unforgettable episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And I'm sure you might know what we are going to be discussing about coming into this. So let's not delay any further for this. So now I shall go and ask the chat wall. And I want to ask you guys, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it. Oh, and on a side note, I just saw that apparently TK is another new fish here, so thank you so much. All right, anyways, oh wow, even more new fishes. Thank you, Edward Vova. Oh boy, the subscriptions just keep on coming on this Twitch, haven't they? But I do see that people are okay. That is great to see. So now, without further ado, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first story that, oh, wow, another sub right over here. A gifted sub from J Monty. Thank you so much there. But anyways, now going on to our first story. With this one, we shall be discussing about an upcoming DreamWorks movie. Now, I know there are some hype, especially with animation fans, for what's going to be coming very soon with The Wild Robot, since that movie has been getting some massive praise. Like, this is the most praise that a DreamWorks movie has gotten ever since Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. But we're not going to be discussing about The Wild Robot. We're going to be talking about the movie that's going to be released after that film. And oh boy, is time flying right now. We are already at the point where we're starting to get more and more trailers for movies that are going to be coming out in 2025. I mean, it's already enough that Marvel's Thunderbolts has already put out a trailer on the day that I am recording this podcast. But what we are going to see here, well, who knows if it's going to reach the same levels as The Wild Robot, but it will definitely take a shot at it. So without further ado, let us go ahead and start things off by checking out the trailer for the upcoming DreamWorks animation movie, Dogman. Whoop.
Dogman! Inside of my mouth!
And that is Dogman, to which the movie is going to be coming soon to theaters on January 31st. And it is also worth noting that when it comes to Dogman, this is going to be DreamWorks' second adaptation of a Dave Pilkey book and bringing it to life into computer animation, with which, of course, the first one being Captain Underpants, the first movie back in 2017. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with my reviews, or if you haven't seen my review of the Captain Underpants movie, I grew up with the Captain Underpants books. I didn't finish all of them. Like, I kind of stopped reading them until, like, I don't even remember. Was it, like, the 8th or 9th book or something like that? But it wasn't until, like, later on. Like, I read several of them, and then I kind of grew up and I moved on from Captain Underpants. But still, though, I have great fond memories of those books, you know, reading about George and Harold shenanigans, and then you got Principal Crump, who turns into Captain Underpants, fighting these over-the-top and really goofy bad guys. And even when it comes to the movie itself, well, I wouldn't say it's DreamWorks' best animated film. Like, there are times when sometimes it can be a little too over the top for its own good. I will say I definitely did enjoy it, and it's one of those movies that honestly made me feel like a kid again. Like, I'll even say that Captain Underpants, the first movie, is the kind of film that I would go crazy over if it were released in my childhood. It feels like the kind that, like, they looked upon my personal childhood and just made a movie, based on, like, what I would like back then. Down to the point of even having Weird Al Yankovic doing the theme song of the feature. So I definitely enjoyed that film. But with that said, though, since I did stop reading the Captain Underpants books before the whole series would go and finish, I will say right now that I've never read any of the Dogman books. I am aware that it is one of the spiritual successors to Captain Underpants, a little bit similar to Super Diaper Baby, but I'm not really that familiar with what goes on with Dogman. In fact, my first taste so far of Dogman is actually this trailer right over here. That's the most that I've gotten so far with Dogman. And I will admit that so far from what I'm seeing in this, it is pretty cute. I'm not seeing something that looks like it's going to be another of DreamWorks movies that's going to be getting the same high praise as The Wild Robot, but I'm not going to deny that I do enjoy what I am seeing here so far. It does look entertaining. Like, number one, I do like the tone of it, where you look at, when you do look at this, it really feels like the kind of movie that it really is unapologetic in terms of the tone that it wants to capture, really feeling like it's not just like a kid's book, but it's the kind of story that is made up by a kid. That's why when I do look at it, I kind of wonder if there is like a legitimate connection between Dogman and Captain Underpants, if this is like one of the stories that George and Harold would go and create, because I know in Captain Underpants, George and Harold loves to write comic books and stuff, like to make their own comic books. In fact, that's how they came up with the idea of Captain Underpants. And I'm wondering if this is one of their stories. And, and there's a part of me that wonders, maybe we'll suddenly have a cameo from George and Harold at the beginning for them to go and present Dogman. It is. Okay, wow. My theory is actually correct. Wow, who would have thought? Honestly, that's how you could tell that I know Captain Underpants a lot. That's how you could tell. It was like, this feels like a thing that George and Harold would make. Oh, it is? Well, what do you know? All right, but with that said, though, now I really want to see if George and Harold does make a legitimate cameo in this movie. I never thought I would see, that would be amazing. Like, I would never think that I would see, like, George and Harold suddenly coming back to the big screen like they did with Captain Underpants. But that's just a theory so far. Nothing is confirmed just yet. But anyways, going back to what I was talking about, looking at this trailer, Like, yeah, it is unapologetically goofy. You know, it like at no point does it ever take itself seriously. And especially when it comes to the overall design of the picture, like everything looks like it was completely crafted by a kid. That like just every element that you just see here, from the back, you know, like the backgrounds, they kind of have like that simplistic charm that it looks like it was drawn by some 8 or 9-year-old. And I don't mean that as an insult, or even like stuff like this, like when they're in the hospital bed and you got the doctor and the nurse that wants to do that crazy operation. You know, oh my God. And I actually just noticed this right now. Like, even like the subtle things. I love the leaf where they put where the dog's nuts would be. Actually, okay, that right here, I do find it to be cute. Like, you know, already I could already tell it's the kind of movie that like you could pause at any moment and you'll see like a cute little piece of humor. Even like right over here, like I just immediately cut to like the board and you see like all these different drawings and different different characters. Like you see the villain Petey, and then you see like the mayor on the board, and like a couple of little drawings with the police chief and Dogman, and like you also got like a fish character as well. Like you look at the little details of how they try to craft this as if like a little kid created all this. And honestly, there is a bit of an admiration that they would go into that extra length. You know, debatably, like they do so even a little bit more than what was done with Captain Underpants, the first movie. Like they, you know, that like now they're going into that extra length where the first Captain Underpants movie, it's straight up Captain Underpants with George and Harold and stuff. But now we're seeing like George and Harold is directing a whole animated picture, and even down to the smallest details, you could tell that everything was done by a kid, that they're taking a whole bunch of kids' drawings and they're using that as their concepts in order to go and create the picture. And then there's also the comedy as well. That's also very fun. Like, honestly, the best way to describe the comedy, it is pretty simple, but there is a bit of a charm to it. You know, it's the same kind of typical dog jokes that you would find, you know, like what Doug would make in Up. Especially, like, we even got the same kind of humor with the squirrel joke. Like, here, where is it? Like, right over here. Like, you would get those same kind of gags, or like even this one where like the chief would go and throw a piece of newspaper out.
Whatnot? No time to waste. Cut it out.
You know, like even that one, like I wouldn't necessarily say it's laugh out loud funny, but it is honestly very cute. You know, it's a lot of fun. And honestly, that's where I see like, okay, now I get where you are kind of going with Dogman, because even though this is based on a Dave Pilkey story, it feels like it does have a bit of that same approach as The Boss Baby, where they would work around this very simple concept. With The Boss Baby, it's a baby that acts like a corporate boss. But then you got Dogman. That movie is pretty much, you have this police officer who has a dog for a head and thinks like a dog. So it's based around that simple concept where they would work around with that kind of material. And if you're looking for that simple kind of premise, you know, like if you enjoy films like The Boss Baby, where they would make the most out of a goofy little premise, then I can imagine this can also work out for you. But I don't mean like, if you like The Boss Baby, then you'll enjoy Dogman as well. I'm not comparing those two features, but you know, what I'm basically saying is that it has the simplicity of Boss Baby in terms of its concept, but execution-wise, this looks like it's gonna lean in a lot more like with Captain Underpants, the first movie. So I would say overall, with this picture, I don't know if I would say that this is going to be among my most anticipated animated movies of 2025. but honestly, I can imagine myself watching this movie and actually enjoying it. You know, I do appreciate the kid-like approach they have with this movie, both in terms of the designs and the entire tone of it. And the comedy looks like it's gonna give me some nice laughs here and there. I wouldn't say like major laughs, but like some very pleasant chuckles from time to time. I'm not expecting anything, again, I'm not expecting anything major. I'm not expecting anything in the levels of what the reviews of The Wild Robot is saying, but I can imagine this is going to be something that's going to be pretty fun to watch. And if you are interested in checking out Dogman, then keep in mind that the movie is going to be coming out in theaters on January 31st. And with that said, now I would like to go and talk to the chat wall. And I'd like to ask you all, what did you all think of the Dogman trailer? Did you guys enjoy what you watched? Are you guys a little hesitant from watching it? Let me know what you think. And also, let me just go and write in the chat. I might as well go and make a poll on Twitch where I will go and ask you all, will you, hold on a sec. Will you be watching Dogman? So I'll write down yes, and then I'll write down no, and we'll see what the answer shall be, or what many of you will say. So anyways, let's see what the chat wall has to say on this. All right. I remember reading some of the Captain Underpants books when I was in middle school and watched the movie in 2017, but I never read the Dogman books. But this movie does look promising. The animation looks like a combination of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and the Peanuts movie, and the humor is goofy and cute. But I get the feeling that it may get the same treatment that Captain Underpants got, where it's great, but not the best DreamWorks movie. It feels like it would be considered underrated. Yeah, honestly, that's my same feeling as well. It's like, I'm not expecting like the best thing to come out of DreamWorks, but I am expecting something that will be fun. Anyways, while this doesn't interest me as much as doesn't interest as much as DreamWorks Animation's in-house production swan song, The Wild Robot, I'm willing to hope of enjoying this more than Captain Underpants, the first movie, even if I haven't watched that on my own time. Also, AniMat, as your birthday is coming, I wish you the best of luck on your review on The Wild Robot, and I hope, as I mentioned before, DreamWorks Animation's in-house productions go out with a bang during their 30-year run. Oh, thank you so much. Well, I mean, it's not going to be coming soon. Technically, it's like in 2 weeks away, but, thank you for the wishes, though. Anyways, let's see what else we got here. While I will admit I'm not really familiar with Dogman and I haven't read the books, this honestly looks kind of cute. I could see how this could be a fun movie. I love the animation style and stays true to the books, and the humor is pretty funny, so overall, this looks fun. However, it really is unfortunate that the animation is not in-house at DreamWorks. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what the chat wall is talking about, unfortunately, this is going to be the first movie from DreamWorks Animation from here on out, in which the animation will be outsourced to Sony Pictures Imageworks. They're no longer going to do their animations in-house. The last one of that will be The Wild Robot. So from there, it is a bit unfortunate, but so far I will say with the people at Sony Pictures Imageworks are very talented, and honestly, they deserve a lot better treatment than just being non-union. But still, though, so from what we are seeing with this trailer, it does look very, it does look like they have done a pretty solid job with that. All right. Anyways, while I love Captain Underpants and had an absolute blast with the movie, Dogman isn't one I'm an expert on, but even then, this trailer looks pretty good. The visual style is really cute, the comedy is solid, and while I like that Dogman is DreamWorks' first silent lead, the real standout here is Pete Davidson. I hope that he does better voice acting as a cat than he did with a dog. Overall, I'm gonna give it a watch. I may or may not be to try and fund the second Captain Underpants movie. Yeah, that would be great. I would love to see another Captain Underpants movie. I mean, like, they already did a whole bunch of shows on Netflix. Well, I'm just here waiting to see, like, if we are going to get that second Captain Underpants film and see what other crazy villains they will go and adapt from the books. And by the way, it's also worth mentioning that it looks like most of you are willing to go and check out Dogman, considering that the majority of you, specifically 81%, have said that yes, you are going to be planning to go and check out Dogman. All right, great to hear. Anyways, let's see what other comments are in here. Hey, Dogman is so stylized. It's like the book comes to life and the animation is as great as Captain Underpants, but maybe more movements inspired by Spider-Verse. The movie shows some promise and I will look forward to it in 2025. By the way, Matt, Glassworker will be screening at the International South Asian Film Festival in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada on September 29th. Go get tickets and check it out. All right, interesting. There's just one problem with your logic. That's in British Columbia. I'm literally at the other side of the country in Quebec. You know, like, that would require, like, a plane ticket and to go literally far in order to go and get that. And unfortunately, I don't have the time for it. I would love to see Glassworker, but not right now, especially if so far it's just in British Columbia that they're doing a screening. I'll wait until there's a Montreal screening for that. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment and then we're going to go and, or two more comments actually, and then we're going to go on to our next, our first break and the next story. Anyways, so far I could see this being really corny in so much of a fun way. But I say now, I'm not exactly very fond of Dogman either. I have read a few of the books, and they can be a pretty fun read, but for me, I feel like they don't have the finesse that Captain Underpants had in his book series. However, I'm not quick to doubt this would be fun to watch. Heck, the real question for George and Harold is this. It's not really if they will make an appearance, but rather, how did two kids manage to pitch this to DreamWorks Animation? Oh my god, yeah, that would be a fun thing to see. Like, if they're not going to give George and Harold a cameo in Dogman, at least put out some videos on YouTube or on social media where we see exactly that. George and Harold trying to pitch this to DreamWorks Animation or actually be directors at DreamWorks Animation. That would be awesome. Let's see now. I'll just say it, this looks completely silly, but I don't mean that as a bad thing. If this can embrace its own silliness like what Captain Underpants did, maybe this can be enjoyable. This doesn't necessarily have to be anything more than a harmless, goofy comedy. Exactly, maybe this won't be a masterpiece per se, but it does look like something that will be a lot of fun. And I mean, if we can have some enjoyment out of it, if we could get some laughs out of it, then I think it will do its job quite well. And with that said, once again, just to go and remind you that if you are interested in checking out Dogman, then don't forget that the movie shall be coming out in theaters on January 31st of next year. All right, so we're going to go on to our first break, and when we do come back, that's when the explosiveness of this episode begins. And yes, I will start off with the big one by talking about the chaos that's been happening at Pixar. So stay tuned for that. All right, we are back. Now, for our next story, this is going to be a major discussion and what is debatably the biggest animation news that came out last week. Now, this is actually related to Inside Out 2, considering that we've talked about it plenty on this podcast, especially with how it performed at the box office and how it did better and better and better, down to the point of becoming the highest grossing animated feature of all time, even beating out Frozen 2 and the 2019 Lion King remake. However, there was a new report that just came out, and let's just say there is a lot, and I do mean a lot, to discuss. Now, I could be wrong, But don't be surprised if suddenly I would have to go and take a break in the middle of it to go and actually discuss more right afterwards. So there's going to be plenty to go and look into. So with that said, let us now go and discuss about this IGN article. Specifically, the one that is called Inside Out 2 was the hit Pixar needed, but the laid off employees who crunched on it are still hurting, which was written by Alex Steadman. Now, I'll be saying this a few times, but if you guys haven't read this article, it's going to be a tough read, but I highly recommend that you go and read this. Now, it is worth noting, by the way, that everything that is stated here are legally and technically considered to be allegations. There is no 100% confirmation if this is what's actually happening at Pixar. But in this article here, they talked to 10 former employees at Pixar about their experience of working at the studio and especially working on Inside Out 2 and how it came out as a massive hit and how they personally feel about it after the experience of what's been going on, and not to mention what's it like to work at Pixar Animation Studios nowadays. And to make a long story short of it, and the best way to go and describe it, well, there's a very good chance that for those of you listening and watching this, you have seen Inside Out 2, so you probably do recall the climax of the movie when Riley was about to have a massive panic attack, and in her head, anxiety is causing this massive tornado, like really going out of control, where all the other emotions are having a hard time to try to get in and to like actually talk to anxiety. Well, unfortunately, that seems to be what's been happening at Pixar, especially during the last few months of the production of Inside Out 2, where there was some serious pressure that was put onto the employees and to the artists and animators, that they really were framed in a position where the movie they were making was, in their words, a life or death situation. Like, they pretty much were working under the pressure that if Inside Out 2 is not a massive hit, then Pixar will become nothing. Pixar will shut down if Inside Out 2 wasn't a big hit. Now, I'm just going to go and state this right now that, in my opinion, I don't think that would have happened anyways. I don't like, even if Inside Out 2 would turn out to be a massive box office bomb, I don't think it would shut down. Like, yeah, sure, they'll have to reassess their business strategies and what kind of films they would go and produce, but I don't think Pixar would immediately cease to exist if Inside Out 2 wasn't a massive hit. But for the animators who were working on that film, it absolutely felt that way, down to the point where overtime was actually very common at the studio. Like, of course they would have to go and work far more hours than they would regularly do. They even stated that they would have to work 7 days a week in order to create this movie and try to make it the best that it can ever be. So they were really under that intense pressure and working overtime. And you could probably imagine the psychological scars that would come with it. And they even said in this article that there are some animators where even if they no longer work at Pixar, even if they're finished with Inside Out 2, they actually still feel that. It's even stated here, so reading from my source on IGN, it states, some go as far as to believe Pixar would fall apart if Inside Out 2 wasn't a runaway success. It was seen by many employees as a life or death situation for the studio, as I just stated. That was the pressure felt by everybody, one source said. We need this movie to succeed because we won't have a studio otherwise. And that is the pressure that everybody felt the whole time. The whole time. Even now, I think people are gone, still feeling that pressure like, oh my God, we did it. We did it. So yeah, you can imagine that by working on this movie, they need some time to recover. Even like, you know, even though like it's already established that Inside Out 2 is the biggest animated feature in history, some animators still need a lot more time, maybe even a few years, just to go and process the experience of trying to go and make that. So in some ways, some people could go and say that with Inside Out 2, or at least the production of it, we're kind of seeing a little bit of the same thing like what happened or what's been revealed last year with the production of Across the Spider-Verse, where the animators have been overworked, the morale was very low at the studio, and, you know, there's always this constant pressure on them where psychologically it's hard to go and recover from that. So with that said, some people would go and see those parallels and they wonder about the creative leader at Pixar, Pete Docter. Is Pete Docter someone like Phil Lord, who's kind of like this tyrant when making the movie and would demand way too much from the animators to the point that they don't care about their well-being and they would just go and like really mess things up during production? You know, like is Pete Docter as bad as Phil Lord? Well, the answer to that is no, actually. In fact, this article actually states that very few people would have anything negative to say about Pete Docter. They wouldn't necessarily consider him to be the problem, but they do explain that there is another problem that is related to Pete Docter. So let me just go and find that little thing over here. Yeah, so it actually states on this one, or wait, is it this one? Oh, no. It's, yeah, it's not over here. Yeah, it's actually in this section. And by the way, it is actually worth noting an additional thing that the animators have actually revealed about Inside Out 2 is that Pete Docter's role in the film is actually much bigger than you would expect. He's not just the executive producer and the creative consultant and stuff like that, but he is also the co-director, where the pressure was so big at Pixar that even Pete had to go and step in and also add a bit of his directorial touch onto the picture. So with that said, let me just go and read you this part here. Many of the sources IGN spoke to generally don't have particularly negative feelings towards Docter. It's well known that after all these years and a proven track record, he knows what he's doing. But it's also indicative of what some sources say is a godlike worship of the man in charge, a holdover from the days of ousted Chief Creative Officer John Lasseter. One source says the studio leans on Docter to an unhealthy degree, and it's partially what leads to a situation like the crunch on Inside Out 2. You could not do anything without Pete, literally nothing, one former employee says, and that creates a bottleneck. For many, it's a symbol of Pixar holding fast to an internal culture that is stubbornly set in its ways, with an aversion to bringing on new directors and voices. One source cites a period of time between 2020 and the release of Lightyear where the studio was more open to bringing in producers and creatives from outside its typical ranks, as well as greener filmmakers. Mann made his directorial debut on Inside Out 2, beginning development during that more experimental period in 2020. So what they're pretty much saying is that Pete Docter is not the problem here. It's just the creative strategies that is happening at Pixar, especially nowadays, where, as they say, the creative process is seriously bottlenecked. And that actually brings up another massive problem when it comes to Pixar, is how they're playing it way too safe and that they're not willing to take any form of creative risks, down to the point where they refuse to go and bring in any new creative voices and new directors to go and make some films for them so that they can add like a fresh new take to the Pixar films and stuff like that, which honestly could also explain some of the recent creative decisions, such as having Andrew Stanton be the director of Toy Story 5, considering that Andrew Stanton is someone who has a lot of experience with Pixar. In fact, he is one of the Pixar veterans, so of course, they would go and hand over the directorial duties to him instead of someone who is like fresh at Pixar, kind of like what they did with Toy Story 4 with Josh Cooley. But the biggest reason why they have this mentality of playing it safe is actually because of Lightyear and the fact that it was a massive failure. And from there, it also brings up kind of like a sub problem to the main problem of having its creative process be bottlenecked. And that is the fact that Pixar does not understand why Lightyear failed. Or at the very least, they did not learn the right lessons as to why Lightyear failed. Now, I will admit, I actually like Lightyear. I don't think it's as good as the Toy Story movies, but I enjoy it for what it is. But at the same time, excuse me, folks. That's my lunch that wants to make a bit of a comeback. But anyways, as I was saying, I do understand why some parts did not work with Lightyear and how that led to the movie's downfall. And from there, the thing is that when the executives saw that Lightyear was a failure, they did not take the right lessons. And one of these is the fact that, unfortunately, well, they want to limit their creative process and they want to try to play it a bit safe. Considering that with Lightyear, say what you will about the film, but you gotta admire the way that it tries to take risks. The ways that it wants to experiment and wants to do things that are way different than what they typically do with the Toy Story films. At the very least, they did try. But with that said, though, not only do they not want to take risk after what happened with Lightyear, but also, oddly enough, the executives somehow believe that the reason why Lightyear failed is because of the fact that there is that gay kiss, or technically the lesbian kiss that happened for 1 second. Apparently because of the conservative outroar, because Republicans were being so weird with that gay kiss that it kind of triggers their disorder and just like freak out over that little thing. Apparently executives believe that that seems to be the cause, and it really turned them off from having any gay characters in a Pixar movie ever again. In fact, they became so paranoid, or you know what, I'm just gonna go and flat out say it, they became so homophobic that they tried to make sure that with Inside Out 2, they wanted to be so that with Riley, she doesn't seem gay whatsoever. Like, they want to make sure that when you see Riley, they put in additional effort, more so than necessary, to make sure that Riley does not seem or is perceived as gay. In fact, let me go and read you that one part over here. It's actually with this, in which it states, the apparent hesitance to touch on LGBTQ plus themed storylines in particular affected Inside Out 2's development, according to several of the sources. Multiple people recall hearing about continuous notes to make Riley, the main character of both Inside Out movies, come across as less gay, leading to numerous edits that ramped up around September of 2023 after the resolution of the Writers Guild of America strike. Sources describe rumors that there was a special care put into making the relationship between Riley and Val, a supporting character introduced in Inside Out 2, seem as platonic as possible, even requiring edits to the lighting and tone of certain scenes to remove any trace of romantic chemistry. One source described it as just doing a lot of extra work to make sure that no one would potentially see them as not straight. And let me just go and comment this on this right now, that this is absolutely ridiculous. This is nothing more but just homophobic paranoia. And I know with the Disney executives, they always never wanted any gay characters. In fact, like you probably remember before Lightyear came out, there was the controversy when it was exposed that they want to try to undermine a lot of the gay elements in certain films. Like they tried to do that with Nimona while Blue Sky was still alive, and they tried to do that with Lightyear. But because of the backlash that they received from that, they then added back that lesbian kiss scene. And with that, honestly, there's really no other way to describe it than delusional paranoia. You know, like this is just freaking out over a non-existent issue. Because I could tell you, like there are many other examples out there that prove those Pixar executives wrong. That the little gay kiss right there, or the lesbian kiss, that is not the reason why Lightyear failed. And a great example of that, funny enough, is another Pixar movie, Luca. Now, I know technically none of the characters in there are gay. But I mean, how many comments, how many posts, how many videos have you seen where people have discussed about the theory that Luca and Alberto might be gay? Like, people have been going on and on and on about the potential relationship of the two, and if there is a possibility that they might become a couple in the future. Now, again, there's no confirmation. It is not canon whatsoever if they are gay, that they are gay or whatever, but it didn't stop people from making those theories and to make those speculations. And I'll just say now, in my personal opinion, I just gotta say, why the fridge are you looking at Luca and Alberto when Urkele obviously is the absolute gay one? I don't know about you guys, but I feel like my gaydar is a lot more triggered on him more so than on Luca and Alberto. You cannot describe, you cannot explain the existence of Urkele without mentioning any gay factor onto him. But anyways, with that said, even though there are a lot of those speculations about which character is gay or not on Luca, that didn't stop the film to become a massive success. That didn't stop the film to collect such a massive fan base and for people to really enjoy it just about as much as any of the other Pixar films. And if that's not enough proof, then why don't you take a look at Nimona, a movie that is unapologetically gay. One of the main characters is gay, in fact, where at the end of the film, they actually do a full-on kiss scene. Like, you actually have two gay characters kissing right in front of the camera, and it's actually a long, passionate kiss on top of that. And not only that, but then you also have the other main character, Nimona, who is an obvious metaphor for non-binary individuals and for transgender people. And yet, that movie has been nothing but a big hit. It is massively successful on Netflix. It is still highly watched on the platform, and also like highly praised by critics, like really gathering raving reviews, and also receiving a whole bunch of nominations for Best Animated Feature, including an Oscar. So in that regards, you can make all the theories and all the explanations as to why Lightyear didn't work, but you factually cannot say that it's because of that gay kiss. So that is another major problem that Pixar has right now. They need to go and reevaluate why is it that Lightyear failed. Because I can tell you right now, being experimental and including gay characters in there is not the problem. But then, with all that said, there is also what is possibly the biggest problem of them all. Now, you got this part here that does go more into detail as to, the work environment of making Inside Out 2 and the massive stress that they went onto it. And even mentioning that, unfortunately, a lot of those problems are still continuing with the next Pixar movie, Elio, which is set to come out next year. But the worst of them all is actually regarding what happens when they get laid off. like, again, keep in mind that this interview or this IGN article, they discussed with 10 animators at Pixar who ended up getting laid off from their job. So they no longer work at Pixar anymore. And and one thing that they massively emphasize is the consequences as to what happens when you get fired from Pixar. And this reveals what I believe, in my opinion, is the biggest problem with the studio right now, at least in terms of their business and how they operate the studio right now. And that is the fact that Pixar Animation Studios is non-union. They are not affiliated with the Animation Guild, and that the animators working at Pixar are actually non-union. And this was actually a deliberate choice. This was actually something that, you know, they've planned out since the very beginning. Like way back when Pixar moved from Richmond to their current location at Emeryville, Steve Jobs picked that location in particular because he and the other big heads at the time, like Ed Catmull and John Lasseter, they wanted to avoid the union as much as possible. Because again, back then, the Animation Guild was only focused on the animation studios in the Los Angeles area. Meanwhile, Emeryville is located right next to San Francisco, much up north in California. So from there, they wanted to make sure and maintain that Pixar remains a non-union studio so they don't have to work with the burden of dealing with the Animation Guild and the limitations that they would go and set onto the executives of what they can do with the animators and stuff like that. But anyways, going back to Pixar, the thing is that even though the place is non-union, what they do offer to their animators is very much like if you are a part of the union. Now, the pay, admittedly, is not great at Pixar, but you do get a lot of benefits when working at the studio. You actually do get some great healthcare, and especially among all things, it's actually, what was it again? Oh yes, the bonuses. Now, the bonuses are meant to be a way to go and compensate for the little salary that the animators would go and get. Whenever a Pixar movie would go and become a massive hit, then the animators who would work on that particular film would end up receiving a massive bonus. And not just that, but also like there are some other factors as well, including the bonus would get bigger if the budget goes under. Like if the money that they spent on the film does go under budget, then that will be placed onto the bonuses that the animators would get. However, there is a massive catch to that. The big catch about it is that if you want to get those bonuses, then you got to be sure that you still work at Pixar until the very end of that production and when that movie gets released in theaters and has that box office result. Now, there is also other factors that do play into the bonuses that, yeah, you will be paid massively if the movie becomes as big of a hit, just like with what happened with Inside Out 2. But if you are under the circumstances that if it ends up being something like Elemental that is only a modest hit, then at that point the bonuses are relatively low. Or if there are those occasions that if the movie becomes a flop, such as Lightyear or The Good Dinosaur back in 2015, then those animators do not get a bonus whatsoever. And keep in mind that when it comes to Emeryville, that is not a cheap place to live. It is actually rather expensive to be living at Emeryville. So a lot of these animators are very dependent on those bonuses in order to go and make a living in that particular area. Now, Oh boy, I don't think I do have a lot of time, but I'm just going to go and take a quick break right now. And when I do come back, I will go and explain more about the problems and the controversies that is happening within Pixar. And I will go and explain the biggest problem as to why Pixar is non-union. And of course, after all that, I will be asking your thoughts on the whole situation. So stay tuned, sit tight. There will be more to discuss about the whole problems with Pixar. So sit tight. All right, welcome back. So let us continue with our discussion with Pixar. So I've already established some of the great benefits that you do get with Pixar, like the healthcare and the bonus and all that kind of stuff. But here is the biggest problem with the fact that they are non-union. You see, the biggest issue is that if you get laid off, and by the way, pardon my language, but you're not screwed. You are fucked. You are just absolutely and unequivocally fucked. Almost for life, even. Because when you're out of Pixar, you lose everything. Just about everything. Not only do you no longer get your salary, but on top of that, you lose your entire access to Pixar, like down to the point you cannot go into the studio at all because the management says that, oh, it's going to make things awkward for the animators, and you cannot even go back in order to go and get your stuff or even to get whatever work that you have done so that you can also include it onto your portfolio. There's also the fact that you no longer have your health care, like any health benefits you would get from that is completely gone, which is pretty ironic because being fired from Pixar after working on Inside Out 2 means that you also lose your therapist, which honestly, those people would absolutely need after that experience. But then also, you lose your bonus. Like, you do not get your bonus whatsoever that people absolutely need in order to keep on living in Emeryville. They need those bonuses, and they've been looking forward to it. In fact, many of those animators, that was the one thing that really keeps them going. Even when their morale is absolutely low, even when they feel like they're just absolutely overworked, they can look upon the bonus in order to feel like their entire work is worth it. But unfortunately, despite doing all that work, they would lose their bonus entirely. And sadly, that is what happened when many of those animators got laid off. And this is especially the case with what happened even this year, or even recently, by the way, considering that, here, let me just go and double check on one thing, just to see if this actually happened this year, or, oh, no, it also happened last year, but, now, the reason why this is a massive problem, because recently, you may recall that Disney has really been on a binge of just really laying off thousands of their employees all across the entire company, like not just at the Walt Disney Company, but even in several of their divisions as well, including Pixar. And yes, Pixar did get massively hit where they would get chunks of employees getting laid off. And not to mention, even this year, there was an instance where about 14% of all the people working at Pixar did end up getting laid off. Now, there are some notable people that during that time did get laid off, unfortunately. And of course, the most notable ones being Angus MacLane, the longtime Pixar veteran who was also the director of Lightyear. And then you also got Galen Sussman, who was a longtime producer and a Pixar veteran as well, that ended up getting let go from the company. But however, when it comes to those people who did get laid off, previously, reports stated that those who did get affected were only those who were working on the shows for Disney Plus. When Disney decided that they were going to go and change up their strategy so that they could go and focus a lot more on theatrically released films instead of making all these like short stories or these TV shows for Disney Plus and stuff like that, you know, for stuff like Win or Lose, or for those little shorts like Cars on the Road and stuff like that. It would only, like, they promised that only those people would be affected. But in reality, that is not actually the case. And there were some animators who were working on movies such as Elio and Inside Out 2 that unfortunately got laid off. So sadly, yes, there were some people who did animate for Inside Out 2. They got screwed over and they got laid off during the middle of production, which means that they no longer have access to those bonuses, or they did not receive the massive bonus. Like, you could imagine that the people who did work at Pixar, they would receive such an incredible bonus because of how successful that it became. But unfortunately, those who did get laid off, they will never see that. And they are right now at the point where they're kind of like reassessing their life of like, what can they do next? And there are some animators that they even stated that, you know, they're trying to find different strategies of what to do, or even relocate themselves from Emeryville. They, you know, it's already becoming too expensive to go and work there, so they would probably have to move out and find another place, like maybe move to Los Angeles or maybe move to Vancouver in order to keep working as an animator. So overall, when it comes to this entire article, it's absolutely shocking, and I would even say heartbreaking to go and read all this. And keep in mind, like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I highly recommend that you go and read this article to go and take a look at what has been going on within Pixar. But yeah, there's no other way to describe this other than it is shocking. And the worst part about it is, again, this is an issue that is still ongoing. They're still continuing this problem with Elio, and that those people are kind of going through the same thing right now. So at that point, there are a lot of issues that are currently happening with Pixar. And I mean, it's not just like one easy fix or like just do this one thing in order to go and resolve the issue. Oh, excuse me, folks. I don't know what the fridge is happening with my digestive system. But there's a lot that needs to be fixed. And unfortunately, it's going to be a very tough battle, especially when the executives who are gatekeeping these problems right now, there's like an increasing disconnect between those people and with the people working at Pixar, considering that actually there is one little moment near the end of the article that actually does describe it best. Let me see if I can go and find it right over here. But yeah, I think it's I think it's like right over here. There was no one from HR or anything supporting us or guiding us. It was all a mixed messaging, and that was super frustrating and emotional, and just adding to the whole stress of all of it. And this is also discussing about when these animators were fired. In the meantime, the former employees were left to watch as Inside Out 2 became a runaway global success. One person there at the time says the studio felt out of touch with how they celebrated its blockbuster box office, with those who worked on it were on the way out. Another laid off employee recalls getting asked by industry colleagues about their potential bonus given Inside Out 2's now hit status, only to relay that they won't be getting it at all. Okay, that's not what I was looking for, actually. Let's see. I know there is one part that honestly, like, it's exactly what I was no, this is it. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Okay, I think the biggest feeling that I heard around the studio before the layoffs, and now even post layoffs, talking to people who are still there, is everybody feels like the executives are really just acting in a fear-based way, another adds. everything is to preserve their own power in their own jobs. So I think morale is really low because people no longer trust that they're being led with their best interests at heart. So yeah, honestly, like, I'm just gonna go and say this right now. Like, I know that I don't have the solution to all the problems here. Like, the best that I could do is just go and express my opinions, to go and discuss about this. And again, these are all allegations, technically, but it is worth discussing about this. So, to go and express my opinion, like with all of these problems that they do have, like, one of the major ones, there needs to be a reconnection between the executives and the creatives. And this is especially on the executives' part, where they need to go and, like, chill out, man. They need to go and actually calm things down, where they have to go and find a way to gain back the trust to their employees. Because right now, like, there is a clear separation between these two, and the more and the longer that this separation is, the more that it will be hurting Pixar, and it will be hurting their movies as well, both critically and financially. So there needs to be a reconnection, or executives would have to find a way to win back the trust of their own employees. And also, that would mean that they would have to go and, like, try to break through their fears. And this is why I mentioned that they need to go and reassess why is it that Lightyear failed. Because a lot of what they thought about is not true at all. It's not the fact that there was that little gay kiss there. In fact, that was actually during one of the best parts of Lightyear, may I say. And it's not the fact that they would go and take creative risks. Like that, and honestly, that's one thing that they especially have to do. They need to be encouraged to go and keep trying more risks. You know, that's what put Pixar on top of the animation industry in the first place. Like, yeah, there is a chance that if they keep on experimenting, they might end up making another Lightyear. But there is also the chance that they could go and make another Inside Out 2, or that they could go and make another one of their masterpieces like the Toy Story films, or Up, or Inside Out, or WALL-E, or anything like that. So honestly, that is another thing that they need to try to go and do, is that they need to be encouraged to take risks. They need to be open to include more diverse characters who could be gay or anything like that. And not to mention, like, out of all the things, like, if they're like, and this is the one that I personally feel like is a massive emergency, Pixar needs a safety net. They need to provide a safety net to the employees that would potentially get laid off, especially nowadays when you got major studios such as Disney, Warner Brothers, and even Paramount, and so much more, when they've been in the mood of just laying off thousands of workers one by one with one major batch at a time. They need to go and find a way to actually include a safety net to their employees. And if Pixar is not going to have the courage to go and do that, then that's when the Animation Guild needs to step in. That's when Pixar absolutely needs a union. And honestly, it is so incredibly stupid that Pixar is still trying to run as a non-union facility. For God's sakes, you're one of the biggest animation studios in the world that is owned by a massive corporation like Disney, and yet you still want to act as if you're like some small indie studio that, oh, I can't afford to have unionized animators. I can't afford to go and follow these rules. Yes, you can. I mean, for God's sakes, you put in like $200 million on your budgets. I mean, you can actually go and afford to have a union to your animators, all right? Grow up, Pixar. Get unionized. That is a major thing that they need to go and do above everything. It's either they need to craft a serious safety net to ensure that their animators are going to be okay after they get laid off. Like, and this could possibly mean like giving them the bonuses as well. That, or the Animation Guild would have to step in and that they need to do something. And I feel like right now, with how things are at Pixar allegedly, and at Disney, and with Hollywood in general, I think there needs to be a moment that the animators need to rally up. They need to team up with the Animation Guild and have it be recognized by the union. So yeah, honestly, that is my entire piece and my thoughts on this entire situation. So yeah, as expected, there was really a lot to say about this, but yeah, honestly, as you know, I love Inside Out 2. It's still one of my favorite movies this year, but it is, you know, much like what we have heard with Across the Spider-Verse last year, it is very disappointing and kind of heartbreaking to hear that this has been going on, even at a place like Pixar. All right, so with that said now, I would like to go and pass this on to the chat wall, and I'm going to ask you all, what do you all think? Because I know I've said an absolute mouthful, and I'm sure you guys have a lot to say as well. So let me know what you think. Let's see. The production of Inside Out 2 is basically Across the Spider-Verse and Sausage Party all over again. I feel bad for the layoffs for the animators and going overtime. And I think Pixar should be unionized with the Animation Guild. Also, don't blame that kiss scene to why Lightyear flopped. Blame it on Disney Plus with Luca, Soul, and Turning Red being on Disney Plus, and those other factors Disney had throughout the years. Oh yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of problems, and I know that it is a very controversial decision that, you know, over time, when you do look back at it, like, yeah, maybe that might not be the best idea. Like, I understand, like, it was the pandemic, but nowadays it's like, oh boy, you're having a real tough time trying to recover from that, aren't you, Pixar? So, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of these issues going on. Anyways, don't get me wrong, I love Inside Out 2. It's my favorite animated film this year next to Transformers 1. But just like Spider-Verse, the quality of the movie does not excuse the treatment they have to endure. I really hope this attitude changes and the animators get treated much, much better in their next projects. Also, theory of Urkelay being gay. Does that mean that he and his minions, Chicho and Guido, were in a polycule? If so, good for them. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look at those three. I mean, you got Urkelay, who's like the dommy daddy, and then you got the other two that are just his subs. I'm just saying. Like, especially there was even that one scene where Urkelay is being fed this like giant sandwich, and it's like, oh come on, like that is just clear queer coding right there. But anyways, while Inside Out 2 is still a phenomenal sequel in my opinion, heck, it's in my top 10 Pixar films, I really do feel bad for the animators, and honestly, at the end of the day, does it matter if Riley is LGBTQ+ or not? This is just down to the point I put more on the blame of those anti-woke idiots than anyone at Pixar. Also, I hope things don't get worse during the awards season, where if the wild robot dominates, people will be such hypocrites where they'll diss Inside Out 2 after praising it. Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, we'll take it one at a time on that. Like, award season won't be until much, much later. But still, though, I mean, like, you could still love Inside Out 2 and, you know, and call out the problems that are happening with the studio. You know, it's very, you know, like, the best way to approach this is, like, how people have been approaching Spider-Verse. I mean, you could still love the movie. You could still praise it for being a masterpiece, but you could still absolutely condemn the way the animators have been treated, and especially condemn Phil Lord and Chris Miller for the kind of toxic work environment that they have been enabling throughout their entire career. So let's see what other comments would there be. So, this isn't nearly as bad as Spider-Verse, but still highly stressful. Lightyear didn't fail because of wokeness, it failed because it was hard to figure out. Also, make Riley less gay? Boy, that was a fail. Riley comes across as having a crush on Val. I don't ship it because Val is 18, but I could see how one can easily interpret it as her being bi. Hell, the Cars movie has more gay and bi-ness. I hope Pixar can be unionized. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you cannot stop the internet from making their own theories as to who could possibly be gay or not. Like, it's gonna happen, rather if you like it or not. Anyways, yeah, this is definitely Disney's fault in this case. I really do feel sorry for everyone who didn't get their bonuses. I know Pixar actually worked hard making this modern classic than the Disney exclusives. Hell, I do know someone who was laid off at Pixar as well, and we were emotional about it. I honestly do hope Pixar will end up getting unionized soon and once again doing some risks again. I know they are better than this. Now it makes me hate John Lasseter even more, hearing not wanting, and suddenly the comment stopped. All right, that's one of the downsides when it comes to some of the Twitch chats is that there is a limited number of characters that they could go and put in. Anyways, let's see what other comments are there. I don't have much to say about this. I never thought there would come a day when Pixar became one of the few controversial studios this year. I'm even feeling anxious trying to comprehend what's being said, and it feels complicated to know what's currently happening. I feel like I feel like any independent idea is no longer safe. Say tell you the truth though. If it ever happens, I'd say make this a great part 2. After this could make a great part 2 after your Sony editorial. Just saying. I don't know what is worse of recent years. That could be an idea. I mean, we'll see how things will go later on. I mean, we'll take the time to see like some of the outcomes with what's been happening with the Animation Guild, because I know right now with the Animation Guild, they are still in talks with the AMPTP in order to go and provide a new deal. So we'll see with how that can go and if they're going to take any steps with what is happening with Pixar. All right, let's see what other comments would there be. All right. This is really sad, yet an important read. I'm really happy Inside Out 2 beat out the Lion King remake, but at what cost? I still do enjoy the movie, believe me, but I condemn the actions the executives did to make the animators' jobs miserable. I shouldn't be too surprised since Toy Story 2 did so years ago, but still very disappointing. The executives really effed them hard with how they're treating animators. That's why animators are still fighting for their pay and treatment with the Animation Guild. Yeah, honestly, I think this is one of those things that we need to start reevaluating what happened at Pixar, especially with that decision with Toy Story 2. Like, a lot of people would say that it was quite an admirable story with that production, and like the movie turned out to still be like an amazing feature. But still though, like, maybe that wasn't the best approach. Maybe that wasn't the best practice. And yeah, I can imagine that the animators were left pretty scarred with what happened. Like, now that you look back at it with what happened with Toy Story 2 and what John Lasseter made those people go through, like, yeah, maybe it might not be a good thing, even if Toy Story 2 turned out to be amazing. All right, let's see what else we got here. I think I'll go with this one. I was going to watch Inside Out 2 when it hits on Disney Plus on Wednesday, but after hearing this news, I don't think I'm planning on watching it now. I feel the same way that I felt like with the production of Across the Spider-Verse. I have nothing against the actual movie, but with the way it was made, I feel so bad that the movie's success came at the cost of animators' mental health. My thoughts and prayers go out to all the animators that were affected by the whole situation. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment, and then we're going to go and take a break so we can recollect ourselves after going through all that, and then we'll move on to the next story. Anyways, this is so shocking of the fact Disney and Pixar have just been messed up for screwing over animators and artists with the same thing with the whole Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse problem. I wish them luck that they will get their needs and wants. Disney is facing this problem at the same time as the Club 33 lawsuit right now. I don't want Pixar is going to be a controversial studio as Skydance Animation. So yeah, I think with all that said, it is really unfortunate to hear the allegations of what's been happening at Pixar, but I definitely do wish the best of luck to those animators who did get laid off at Pixar. And also, I do wish the best of luck for the people who are currently working at Pixar that hopefully the working conditions can get better. All right, so with that said, we're going to go and take a break. And when we do come back, we're going to go and see what's been happening at the other Disney Animation Studio. And while this is not a controversial decision, this is one that is still quite surprising. So stay tuned for that one. All right, welcome back. Now, on our next story, we're still going to be in the realms of Disney, but we're going to go into something that is less controversial. Like, this isn't something that is meant to be upsetting or anything, but I will say, when this news came out, this completely came out of left field. This was like, wait, what? Like, this feels like an unexpectedly massive thing that they just revealed, and it's really going to be changing things up with how things will be managed at Disney Animation. And that is especially the case when it comes to their chief creative officer, which, let's just say is now under new management. Yes, Walt Disney Animation Studios has officially revealed that Jared Bush is now their brand new chief creative officer. Now, before I go into the aspect of Jared Bush, we need to go and address with what is happening with the now former Chief Creative Officer, Jennifer Lee. And so far, she has had the job for about 6 years now, and it looks like she'll no longer be having it. And some people might be thinking, is this actually because she got fired from the job? Is she no longer working at Disney Animation? Was her role like taken away from her or something like that? Well, to tell you the truth, no. In fact, many reports have indicated that this might actually be Jennifer Lee's decision, mainly because she wants to put her entire focus on the Frozen sequels, including Frozen 3 and 4. So just to go and actually to emphasize a little bit more on this, let me just go and read you here from my source on Deadline, as it states, as Disney readies the sequels to its uber-grossing $1.75 billion Frozen franchise, Walt Disney Animation Studios Chief Creative Officer Jennifer Lee is segueing from her position to direct and write Frozen 3 and executive produce Frozen 4 with Mark Smith. Effective immediately, Oscar-winning Encanto filmmaker Jared Bush has been named Chief Creative Officer of Walt Disney Animation Studios, reporting to Disney Entertainment co-chairman Alan Bergman. And there are several quotes that I would like to go and read you about this with Jared Bush being the new Chief Creative Officer. And a lot of people have a lot of positive things to go and say. So the first one will be from Alan Bergman, as he states here. Jared Bush is an incredible filmmaker and a talented executive who's been a prominent creative force at Disney Animation for the past decade, and I am thrilled that he'll be taking the reins of this storied studio. I also want to thank Jennifer Lee for her passionate leadership of the studio over the past several years. She's made an incredible mark on both Disney Animation and the industry. I know she has so many more stories to tell, and there is truly no one better suited to oversee the continuation of the beloved story of Frozen. Then we got a comment here from Jared Bush himself, in which he says over here, I am so deeply grateful to Bob Iger and Alan Bergman for their faith in me, and thankful to Jennifer Lee for her leadership and for her generous support as she embarks on the next chapters of Frozen. Disney Animation is home to some of the greatest stories and characters of the past century, and I'm so excited to work with all of our filmmakers, artists, and Disney Animation team members as we shape the future of this legendary studio together. And finally, we got one quote here from Jennifer Lee, as she states, I am so grateful to Bob and Alan for supporting my decision to return to filmmaking full time. So that's the indication that this might actually be her decision to go and step down as the Chief Creative Officer so that she could fully work on Frozen 3 and 4. Every day working with them is a masterclass in creativity, business, community, and integrity. I always believed in Jared's incredible talent and can't wait to see, with his passion and dedication to animation, what he brings to the Chief Creative Officer role. For me, getting to collaborate with this studio of artists, animators, and storytellers is such a privilege, and I look forward to all we will create together. So that's currently the situation, is that now Disney's new creative leader is Jared Bush, while Jennifer Lee is going to be putting all of her focus onto Frozen 3 and 4. Now, I'm just going to go and state this. Now, the thing about me saying that, oh, well, this was Jennifer Lee's decision to go and, work fully on Frozen 3 and 4, like, that's just my guess on this. That's just my theory. I mean, I don't work at Disney, of course, so I don't know what's actually been going on behind the scenes. But there's been a lot of discussions about what has been happening, and like with this decision in particular, with Jared Bush being the new chief creative officer, and people looking back into Jennifer Lee's role as the chief creative officer. Because let's be honest here, with during the time when Jennifer Lee was the CCO, Disney was not at its strongest shape. In fact, when you do look at Disney Animation right now, I feel like it's kind of going through the exact same thing as how they were back in the early 2000s, where in the decade prior, they had an amazing time and they have put out some of their biggest and most legendary pictures, whether it be the Disney Renaissance with The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and stuff like that, or even with the 2010s with Frozen, Moana, Zootopia, Wreck-It Ralph, and many more. But then, when Jennifer Lee was put in charge, I will admit, like, even though I have enjoyed Disney's movies recently, like, you could tell the quality took a little bit of a dip. And even though they would try to do many new and different things, like, they don't necessarily hit as hard as some of their previous features. In fact, it's very interesting to see a lot of the outcomes of these pictures in particular, both how they would do in the box office, the audience's reactions, and the critics' reactions. They're very much the same thing like what happened back in the 2000s. I mean, you look at Raya and the Last Dragon, Wish, Strange World. They're really not that different than back in the 2000s when people initially reacted to films like Atlantis the Lost Empire, Treasure Planet, and Brother Bear. And not to mention that there is that one movie during that little period right there that was a massive hit and went on to become a major phenomenon, where in the early 2000s, it was Lilo and Stitch. And in the early 2010s, where we are right now, that's Encanto. So in that regards, I'm not saying that Jennifer Lee did not deserve the position. Like, she did a fine job as is, but it's pretty clear that she didn't lead to Disney to be in its strongest shape, per se. And it even shows creatively, where even films like The Strange World and Wish, like, they don't hold a candle when compared to Moana or Frozen, for example. So in that regards, like, I don't know if it's true that maybe with the way that she was leading Disney, that is not as strong as how it used to be, maybe that might have influenced the decision, but I cannot say for sure. But it's hard to ignore that it was happening during that period when she was the chief creative officer. And again, I'm not saying that she didn't deserve the job, and how she was managing it, it was all right. But there is that side that did show that, maybe Disney could have been better than how things are right now. And this is not to mention the fact that when she was hired as the chief creative officer, it was a bit of a rushed decision. When you think about it, at the time, back in 2018, when she was named the chief creative officer, the main goal that Disney had at the time was not thinking about, all right, who is going to be who's going to be John Lasseter's successor? Who is going to be the next chief creative officer after John Lasseter? Like, they weren't necessarily thinking of that. They were mainly thinking about, all right, what can we do to plan out on how to get rid of John Lasseter? We need a plan to ensure that we'll be fine as we go and kick out John Lasseter. Like, that was the main goal at the time. And of course, they went with Jennifer Lee because, well, she, back then, she really had some very strong credentials, and she provided a lot of great work. She was one of the writers of Wreck-It Ralph, and then, of course, you got the Frozen movies as well that were massive proof of, her great contribution to Disney Animation. So that's how she got the position, that's how ultimately she went on to get that position. But I will say, so yeah, and even some people on the chat, they even said it best that it was more bad timing than anything, it was a bit of a sudden thing to go and put in Jennifer Lee to go and be the chief creative officer while she was working on Frozen 2, by the way. So and you could and the stress that she had at the time, it did show in that Frozen 2 documentary on Disney Plus, which is a great documentary, by the way. I do highly recommend that you go and check it out. So that's why I want to go and have a little bit of that discussion, because yeah, you look at what she has done, and she did a pretty solid job, and there's no denying there have been some good work that have been released under her creative watch, including Encanto and and even some of the shorts as well, including the Once Upon a Studio, and even just recently with the Hot Ones episode with Donald Duck, and I'll even say, for me, I definitely liked a lot of the movies under Jennifer Lee. I really like Raya and the Last Dragon, and I'm still not going to apologize. I still like Wish. It's not Disney's best, but it's still a solid movie as is. It's still a great and fun watch. But with that said, though, I could see that I cannot deny that maybe a change in creative leadership can also help things out in order to give that boost that Disney would absolutely need. And with that said, though, when it comes to Jared Bush, I am not gonna lie. I don't think Disney had picked a better person for this job than this guy, because with his credentials, with what he has worked on, he has proven that he has more than enough to go and actually really pick things up for Disney. And whenever he works at whenever he cooks at Disney, he really is cooking, and he is involved in some of Disney's best projects in recent years. Just to go and list you down. Oh, and actually, the funny thing that I've noticed, with this discussion of Disney animation, here's Wish right over here, still being advertised, surprisingly enough. Even Asha's there is yeah, we're still here, we ain't going anywhere. But anyways, going back to Jared Bush, it even said, you can see, with his credentials that he states, as Chief Creative Officer, the decade Disney vet Bush will steer the creative output of Disney Animations across films, series, and associated projects. Bush wrote and directed 2021's Encanto, which won the animated feature Oscar, and served as the executive producer on Raya and the Last Dragon. He was also co-director and co-writer on 2016's Oscar-winning Zootopia, writer of the Oscar-nominated 2016 hit Moana, and received an Emmy Award for Zootopia Plus. He serves as a writer and executive producer on the upcoming Moana 2, hitting theaters on November 27th, and is directing and writing Zootopia 2, set to open on November 26, 2025. And by the way, there is also another update. Apparently on Twitter, Jared Bush has made the announcement that because of his new position as Chief Creative Officer, he is bringing back Byron Howard to be another director for Zootopia 2. So in that regards, that got me really hyped up, because honestly, if it wasn't Jared Bush who would be the chief creative officer, my second choice would be Byron Howard, because his credentials are also phenomenal. And I would even say that he's already one of my favorite Disney directors. So in that regards, I'm already hyped up for Zootopia 2, and already I think it just made it as my most anticipated movie of 2025. And I gotta say, overall with this, I feel like this really is a happy ending for everyone in this case. Disney didn't do like with Pixar, where they would just go and fire Angus MacLane for directing Lightyear, and also fire the producer, which I just need to remember her name. Suddenly it just slipped my mind. Chat wall, you could, oh crap, am I frozen again? Wait, so speaking of Jennifer Lee, am I frozen again? Let me just go, am I back? Just to double check. Chat wall, can you hear me? Can you see me? I know you cannot feel me because you're just looking at me on the computer or listening to me on the computer. Yeah, Jocelyn Sussman, thank you. Okay, good, thank you so much. But anyways, back to what I was talking about here. You know, this really is a happy ending where I feel like, with what, you know, like, this isn't like what Disney did where they would go and fire people because they made a flop and stuff like that, you know? They didn't get rid of Jennifer Lee for her contribution on Wish. In fact, it's great to see that none of the Disney animators or nobody got fired because of stuff like Strange World and Wish, you know? That is honestly great to see, and it's honestly quite a relief. But honestly, I do see this as like a win-win for everyone, where Disney is getting a new chief creative officer that could really give it that quality boost that it probably needed for quite a while now. And when it comes to Jennifer Lee, she's just going back to work on what is essentially her magnum opus, like her biggest contribution to entertainment, and to go and give, the sequels with Frozen 3 and 4 to give it 100% of her attention. Like, her job right now, like, I know there's a lot of doubters out there who say that Frozen 3 and Frozen 4 are absolutely unnecessary. But now, Jennifer Lee, her job is to go and try to prove the doubters wrong. To go and make it the best that it can be and prove that there is a reason why we do need a Frozen 3 and 4. So with all that said, I absolutely wish the best of luck for Jennifer Lee with working on Frozen 3 and 4, and hopefully to make the wait of those sequels to be absolutely worth it. And I wish the best of luck for Jared Bush to be the Chief Creative Officer. And again, to go and give Disney a massive boost to be that highly admired studio that it has been for about a century now. That's pretty much my thoughts on this entire piece, and hopefully this will mean that things will look up for Disney Animation. But I guess the first test will be with Moana 2 that's going to be coming out, especially when we do have Jared Bush that will be involved as one of the writers. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what did you all think of this sudden switch of chief creative officers? Are you guys excited for it? How do you feel about how Jennifer Lee did as the chief creative officer, and how do you think Jared Bush will be? So let me know what you all think on this. Well, I gotta go with the Disney guy who mentioned that he just met Jennifer Lee. This is one of the most unexpected moments this year, and I just met Jennifer Lee last month. She's easily one of the nicest filmmakers I've ever met. She's so nice enough that she agreed to do a cameo on my YouTube channel. Same goes to Jared Bush. I love that every time I see Jared, we talk about casual stuff and his films. Now he is the Chief Creative Officer of Walt Disney Animation Studios. Congratulations, Jared. To Jen, good luck on Frozen 3 and 4. You two are my favorite people. Awesome. All right. I could definitely see this as a good decision. Jennifer Lee stepping down as Chief Creative Officer and focusing more on the upcoming Frozen sequels, so she doesn't have too much on her plate. And I could definitely see how Jared Bush can do well as the new Chief Creative Officer. And I could definitely, as a new Chief Creative Officer with his works. As for Byron Howard coming back for Zootopia 2, I think it's a wonderful idea. And I think all this could help Walt Disney Animation Studios get back on track. Exactly, man. All right, so let's see what else we have. What other comments would there be? I will say this is really an interesting yet unexpected decision. As much as I enjoy some of the films under her leadership, I will be honest, she was not the best when it comes to running the studio, especially when at the time, she's a single parent and directing Frozen 2. So it's very understandable why she has to step down to take things easy. Overall, the change is pretty interesting, and I'm wishing both Lee and Bush the best of luck with their roles. Well, I mean, things have definitely changed now. With Frozen 3 and 4, she no longer has to worry about, she doesn't have to worry about being the Chief Creative Officer. She also doesn't have to worry about being a single mother, considering that she is literally married to Doc Ock. No joke, her husband is actually Alfred Molina. And right now, with Jared Bush being the new chief creative officer, hopefully that touch that he gave to Moana and Zootopia, and with what was that other film again? With Encanto, that it will shine through. So hopefully we'll see the best of luck for them. All right. What other comments would there be? I am glad that Jennifer Lee still works at Disney. I still think she did a decent job heading Disney Animation, although I enjoyed the documentary on Frozen 2. I'm glad that Jerry Bush would be taking her place because it was someone in the studio. Best of luck to both of them. And looking on the bright side, at least it's not John Lasseter, so I can have no bad taste. Also, quick question, if you could answer. I consider Lasseter the Harvey Weinstein of animation. Do you? That's a bit much to say. I don't know if I would really go as far as to say that. I mean, again, the thing with John Lasseter is that I know his actions are not as bad as some of the other animation studio that went under the same controversy. He's not as bad as like John Cristofalusi, Vic Mignogna, Chris Savino, or Cal Carosa. But like his actions are still quite bad and still very much condemnable. And especially with the injustice for John Lasseter's victims, with the fact that he faced no consequences. And what happened is that he jumped straight from Disney to Skydance Animation. So I don't know if I would, like, I understand with the point of view of the fact that he is a very powerful figure in animation, just like how Harvey Weinstein was. In the movie industry, but saying that he's the Harvey Weinstein of animation for the controversies, that might be a bit much. But still, though, we need to still treat John Lasseter no differently than Harvey Weinstein, again, for the justice of John Lasseter's victims. All right, let's see what else we have here. Crude sloth impression. Da, da, da. But seriously, she looks as if she knows what she's doing. Why can't all movie companies be like this? I don't know how good or bad the trilogy or quadrilogy will turn out, but I think Tom Hanks said it best in Forrest Gump. You never quite know what you're going to get, and I think it means that, and I think I mean this in a good way. Best of luck to you, Jennifer Lee. That's honestly the best, that's the best thing that I do see. Like, there's no massive hate that is going on against people like Jennifer Lee or Disney over this decision. Like, so far, the responses that I've been seeing, they've been pretty decent. They've actually been pretty nice, and people have been cool with the decision for both Jennifer Lee to put all her focus onto Frozen 3 and 4, and for Jared Bush to be the new chief creative officer. It's been like always working out. So, it is very nice. All right. I think I'll, let's see. Well, is there one more comment to go and read on this? Just to be sure. Did I read? No, I think I already read that one. Okay. Is there one? Okay. I'll go with I'll go with this one. Honestly, I am extremely curious now. This is a creative boost. This is the creative boost that Disney Animation, I guess that Disney Animation needs. The director of Encanto as the new head. I wish luck to Jennifer Lee on focusing on the Frozen movies. All right, so yeah, I mean that's the best way to put it. I wish all the best of luck for both Jennifer Lee and Jared Bush for their new positions at Disney Animation. All right, so we're gonna go on to our next break, and when we do come back, we're gonna set Disney aside for this one. And now we got another studio that is in hot water right now for making an absolutely stupid decision. Like, I know that things are not going well for this studio in particular, but let's just say that technology is not the solution, especially that technology. So stay tuned for that. All right, welcome back. Now, when it comes to our next story, we will be discussing about Lionsgate. And this year, or more specifically this summer, they've not been having a good time. It's been going pretty badly for them, especially when recently they did Son of a fish. Excuse me, folks. I am so sorry for that. But anyways, recently with Lionsgate, they have been responsible for releasing some of the biggest bombs this year. With not just The Crow, but then you also got the Borderlands movie. And even coming soon, there's going to be Francis Ford Coppola's Metropolis. And that is also looking like it's heading towards a massive disaster, like especially with all the controversies that have been surrounding it before its release. So yeah, right now, the business is not going great for Lionsgate. But don't worry, they actually do have a solution. It just so happens to be the worst solution you can ever think of. And that is being dependent on AI. Yes, Lionsgate has announced that they are going to be teaming up with the AI research company Runway in order to use its AI technology to go and become a massive tool to make its movies. Now, to go into specifics regarding what I've just said here, let me just go and read you here from my source on Variety. As it says here, Lionsgate, the film and TV studio behind film franchises including John Wick and The Hunger Games, announced a deal with applied AI research company Runway, whose investors include Google and AI hardware vendor Nvidia. Touted as Runway's first deal with a Hollywood studio, the pact centers around Runway's creations and training of a new AI model, customized to Lionsgate's proprietary portfolio of film and television content. Lionsgate owns a film and television library with more than 20,000 titles. According to Lionsgate, Runway's model generates cinematic video that filmmakers, directors, and other creative talent can use to augment their work. That AI-generated video can be further iterated using Runway's suite of controllable tools. So basically, the main thing that they want to do is that with Runway's new tool that they would go in, they would try to use AI in order to help create their features. Now, the co-chair of Lionsgate, Michael Burns, went into detail about their intentions of what they want to do with the technology, in which he states here, several filmmakers the studio works with are already excited about its potential applications to their pre-production and post-production process. We view AI as a great tool for augmenting, enhancing, and supplementing our current operations. So in that regards, I have one thing that I want to ask. Names. I want names here. I want to know, who exactly do you mean about several filmmakers who are excited for it? Name me the people that are excited about this new AI tool when it comes to making their films. I really want to know. And then it also states here, Lionsgate expects to save millions and millions of dollars using Runway's AI models, Burns told the Wall Street Journal. We do a lot of action movies, so we blow a lot of things up, and that is one of the things Runway does. Oh yeah, I think that's probably the one thing that we will agree upon. Yeah, with AI, it really does blow up a lot of crap, and not in a good way whatsoever. So in that regards, yeah, I'm sure that the Runway AI thing is going to blow up a lot of stuff that you don't want to be blown up, such as your business. But anyways, there is one more comment that I just want to go and read here, and this is actually going to be from the CEO of Runway and its co-founder, Cristobal Valenzuela, in which he states here, we're committed to giving artists, creators, and studios the best and most powerful tools to augment their workflow and enable new ways of bringing their stories to life. The history of art is the history of technology, and these new models are part of our continuous efforts to build transformative mediums for artistic and creative expression. The best stories are yet to be told. Lionsgate has an incredible creative team and a clear vision for how AI can help their work. We're excited to help bring their ideas to life. So that's essentially the big thing here, is the fact that Lionsgate is now going to become more dependent on AI in order to create their features. And already I could tell there are some massive problems. By the way, one thing that I want to go and emphasize right now, it is noted that when it comes to the vice chairman of Lionsgate, Michael Burns, he's actually not that well liked in the industry. There's a reason why you don't see a whole lot of Lionsgate movies to be distributed, and that's mainly because a lot of creatives in Hollywood, they're not really that willing to go and work with Michael Burns. They rather keep their distance away from the guy. And I think this is a massive example as to why, because he's one of those people that desperately wants to use AI and is not so secretive in terms of his intentions. In fact, he pretty much said without flat out saying it about why he wants to use AI. And one of the major things is the fact that it would save millions and millions of dollars, and how it would be supplementing some of their current operations for pre-production and post-production process. And I think we all know what that actually means. It's nothing more but PR language to say that we're going to use AI in order to replace jobs, in order to take down thousands of jobs that are in Lionsgate right now so that they could go and replace them with AI. And there are tons of them that currently they are in danger because of this AI thing that they want to do with Runway. For pre-production, the people that are getting, okay, well, technically not everyone is going to get screwed over, especially thanks to last year's strikes. We know that some of the key players are going to be fine. Like, we know people such as writers, actors, directors, and producers, they're not really going to be affected by this. But then, in pre-production, you do have people like storyboard artists that are going to get screwed over by this. Keep in mind, with storyboard artists, they don't work exclusively on animated features. They also work on live action films as well, and are an integral part to go and help give a bigger picture to how are they going to pull off the cinematography. So in that regards, the storyboard artists might end up getting screwed over in this whole situation. But then you also have the post-production, and there is a massive list of people that I can imagine could end up getting screwed over by this. Like, there's a lot of visual effects artists that might be in danger because of this. There's also musicians who work with the composer. Now, I don't think they're going to go and use that to replace the composer, but I can imagine that they want to use the tool in order to go and help out the composer in order to make their works. I can imagine that could actually be a thing. There is also sound engineers that could be in danger. There is also possibly editors that could be in danger. There's also not sound engineers, but some of the sound effects people, like people who work on sound effects, they would actually go and actually be in danger of this. There's actually a whole list of people whom their jobs might be in jeopardy because of this AI technology. And Lionsgate is just out here like stubbornly thinking like, oh yeah, AI is going to help make our films, when they're just flat out being unapologetic in terms of the fact that they just want to use it in order to go and save up money. Because they know for a fact that their businesses are not going well. They know their movies have been flopping and they've been losing millions upon millions of dollars. And like I said, they already lost a lot of money on the Crow remake, on the Borderlands movie, and they might also lose some on Megalopolis, which is going to be coming out next week. So in that regards, they're pretty much at the point where now they're just focusing on trying to save money. Like, for them, the profits is going to be more important than the creativity. And I'm not going to lie, when I look at this, and you know, the thing, there is also something that I got to say is actually pretty funny about all this, mainly because of the fact that it's from Lionsgate. And the thing is, with Lionsgate, if you're not impressed with their animated films now, you're going to be far less impressed with whatever they could have in production. And this is a warning to the creatives that are currently in Hollywood right now. Because of this AI deal that they did, do not go and work for Lionsgate. Because I can assure you that AI thing is going to make your movie absolutely garbage. And I'm not just saying that because of the way that they would want to go and use AI, but really think about it. Think about the animated movies specifically that have been distributed by AI. In fact, let me just go and take a look here. Animated films released by Lionsgate. So, if you do take a look at the list here, like this is the Wikipedia article of all the animated films that Lionsgate has released. And there are a few notable ones that are actually pretty good. I mean, the first one they released is called I Married a Strange Person, an animated film from Bill Plimpton. They also released Jonah, a VeggieTales movie, not a bad choice, and one that I know I need to give a second chance to. They also released the Shaun the Sheep movie, but then again, that's because of AniMat's Animation. And with that said, they also did release Early Man. But then you look at everything else and like, they range from bad to like, oh God, this is terrible. Happily Never After. Fly Me to the Moon, the 2008 movie, by the way. The Wildlife, Norm of the North, freaking Rock Dog, Alpha and Omega, the 2009 Astro Boy movie. So really think about this, folks. Really think about this. This AI system, its knowledge on animation it's just gonna be, or it will primarily be, on those things in particular. It's just gonna be on those movies. And this is not even counted, and like keep in mind, these are just the theatrically released animated films. This is not even to mention the ones that have been released like direct to home media or direct to streaming. Like imagine if it also includes all of the like Norm of the North sequels and the Alpha and Omega follow-ups. Like imagine if those are also included as well. So imagine you're a creative person and you want to make an animated film with Lionsgate. So then at that point, they're going to ask you, all right, use this AI tool in order to work on the pre-production and post-production. So then you get to work, but the AI system is only going to recognize, like, you're going to ask them, okay, help me make an animated film. And the point of reference it's going to give you is going to be stuff like Alpha and Omega and Norm of the North. Like, are you freaking serious? Like, that's gonna be your best point of view of it? Like, yeah, you're gonna get a few good ones. Like, you got the Shaun the Sheep movie right there, but you're not gonna make a freaking Aardman movie, are ya? No, that thing is too unique. It's going to, like, if you want to specifically make an American animated feature, it's going to hand you stuff like freaking again, with Norm of the North and Alpha and Omega. So what you'll end up making is not just another Norm of the North and Alpha and Omega, but you're gonna make a Norm of the North and Alpha and Omega that was enhanced with AI. So honestly, I do not understand why anyone would want to go and actually make an animated movie with Lionsgate. And honestly, there's also other problematic aspects with it. Like there's also the problem of when it comes to like residuals and stuff like that, when it comes to payments, like wouldn't you, like, I don't know, like isn't there like some form of consent that you have to do with those filmmakers? Like especially those that, you know, that they're under specific union contracts, you know, like when you have unions such as like you know, the Directors Guild, the Writers Guild, the actor, you know, SAG-AFTRA and stuff like that. Like, you know, the fact that their movies are still going to be used, but in those systems, isn't there like some kind of like payment issue that you need to still keep paying them because you're still using those movies for those systems in particular? I don't know. I feel like that is another, you know, that's like another mess that is hard to go and like try to uncover. That feels like another troublesome factor when it comes to this technology. So overall, I feel like with this whole thing, it's just a massive mess right over here. Like the fact that they want to use, the fact that they're being pretty unapologetic and almost direct with their use of AI, that they want to cut down jobs and try to save millions of dollars with it. And the fact that they're trying to, the fact that they're going to be using their own library of features, which is honestly not really that impressive in the first place. I feel like this whole thing is already dead on arrival. This is going to be one of those things that honestly, I can easily imagine in the future that if Lionsgate goes belly up, if somehow business gets worse and worse, where they're in the where they would end up in a position similar to how Paramount was earlier this year, then at that point, honestly, we'll have one thing that obviously will go and blame. It will be with people like Michael Burns and with technology such as AI really not working out for them. So honestly, this is just something that I want to go point out, and how stupid this whole thing is, and how this is just a complete disaster for this whole thing. All right, so with that said, now I want to go and pass this onto the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what did you all think about the about Lionsgate now using AI to go and make their films and save money? Let me know what you all think. I'm not going to ask if any of you are supportive of this or if you're against this, because I think it's pretty unanimous on where you all stand with this whole thing. Let's see now. I hated Lionsgate ever since they made Muppets Most Wanted flop by releasing Divergent on its opening weekend. Glad to see everyone else now hates them as much as I do. I have no sympathy that they've been having bomb after bomb since the last John Wick came out. They somehow managed to out-evil Disney in this episode. How the fridge did they even do that without hiring a mercenary group to attack a third world country? I mean, that's the funny thing about it, is that no matter how bad you think one company could be, it's always worse. Like, yeah, like even though things are going very bad with Pixar, like at least they do have the decency of not wanting to use AI, in contrast to what Lionsgate is doing right now. Let's see now. While I understand that Lionsgate is trying to save money, I disapprove of them using AI. I wonder if filmmakers, actors, and crew members will refuse to work with them as a way to protest. I still think The Wild Robot will beat Megalopolis at the box office. If that does happen, I will feel bad for Lionsgate for having several flops, because I feel like because I like Lionsgate and I don't want it to shut down. Oh boy, a little bit of an opposite right there. Nah, but I think it is safe to say, like, no matter what the outcome is going to be with The Wild Robot, I'm going to be honest, and like maybe I'll be proven wrong. Like this could end up aging poorly, but I don't know if it will end up becoming like a massive success. Even though it's been getting like amazing reviews, I feel like there's just too much competition all around it for it to really make a significant, amount of money at the box office, or to actually be like a big name powerhouse at the box office. I feel like there's a strong chance that movies like Transformers 1 and Joker Folie à Deux might quickly overshadow it. I don't know, but I could totally be proven wrong. But one thing's for sure, it'll definitely do better compared to Megalopolis. Like, I think it's safe to say that Francis Ford Coppola movie is already dead on arrival. All right, let's see, what else do we have here? Seriously, what was even the point of the strikes last year? The fact that Lionsgate would be willing to take away people's jobs is flat out disgusting. Seriously, it makes me wonder if this year is Lionsgate's 100th anniversary, because of how terrible of a year it's been for them. Seriously, how ironic is it that the CEO's last name is Burns, considering that he's no different than Mr. Burns? Oh my god, I just realized. Oh, that would have been such a nice opportunity for me to go and actually do a Mr. Burns impression on his quote. Hold on, you know what? I'm going to go and do that, actually. I want to go and try to, regain that opportunity. Let's see here. So, yeah, it says here, according to Mr. Burns here, several filmmakers the studio works with are already excited about his potential applications to their pre-production and post-production process. We view AI as a great tool for augmenting, enhancing, and supplementing our current operations. And then there's the other comment here. Lionsgate will be expected to save millions and millions of dollars. We do a lot of action movies, so we blow a lot of things up. And that is one of the things Runway does. You know, I just wanted to do that. You know, it's just I just wanted to do that because, like, it's right there. You know, you gotta do something. But anyways, what other comments are there? Come on, guys. Would you trust a movie studio that released crap like Norm of the frickin' North? I don't think so. I really do hope Lionsgate will end up failing miserably. They mostly don't know how to make good movies. If they do, it's someone else like Aardman. So no, AI is never the solution, and I hope it absolutely fails. We need more good movies like John Wick. Yeah, I feel like nowadays, like, that's the only thing that's been keeping them afloat, you know? I feel like the only things that's been keeping them alive is that so far, their franchises still have a bit of traction, like John Wick, Hunger Games, and I think Saw is still going well. And like even some, like there's even some that they want to try to bring back. Like I heard apparently they want to do a Twilight animated series. So I don't know how the fridge that's going to be, but who knows? Anyways, well, we all know what's the worst studio ever. Seriously, Lionsgate is probably one of those studios that you never wanted to work with. Sure, they have big hits such as John Wick and The Hunger Games, but their other movies are just a big joke with their bombs, such as Borderlands and The Crow. And worse, to keep the critics hiding until after the release is another cherry on top. Say what you will about Disney and Warner Brothers, but at least they keep their system quality over quantity. In some cases. You know, even I have to admit, I don't agree 100%. Like, yeah, Warner Brothers and Disney can release some great movies, but sometimes they can be, like, in their quantity mode. I'm just saying. Let's see. What other comments would there be? What other, I think, oh, okay. I was hoping that you would talk about The Amazing Digital Circus heading to Netflix after being a hit on YouTube, but dude, this decision right here is an absolute stupid one. I get that Lionsgate isn't doing so hot right now, but that doesn't mean you have to go and lay off hundreds of people for the sake of AI. Just to clarify, by the way, there is no confirmation that anybody got laid off from Lionsgate just yet. This is just a speculation with what it could possibly mean with them becoming codependent on AI. So I'm just saying that now. This is going to make Lionsgate's whole situation so much worse unless they call off this AI deal. Now that I can agree with. Let's see now whether they're... I think I'll read one more comment before we take our next break and go into the final story. Excuse me. Let's see now. Lionsgate making this move is a morally stupid idea. This is evil and sick, and them wanting to use AI for their workers, well, if they shut down, it will be all their fault and not someone else's. Plus, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get a buyer after they close down if this move blows over. Also, is it me, or they have a terrible track record on animated movies? Norm of the North, Happily Never After, or Pinocchio, A True Story. I don't know if that's actually Lionsgate who did release, was it actually them who did release that Pinocchio movie? I'm not 100% sure. Just to go and double check, or... Oh, okay, well, there is another list of animated films that Lionsgate has released. So let's see if this is any different. Nope. Okay, no, I was just checking. It's like, it's from a fandom wiki, but like a lot of it is kind of the same thing. It's just it's like a copy paste of what was done on the original Wikipedia page. All right, so I just wanted to make sure on that. All right, so anyways, we're going to go on to one more break, and when we do come back, we will have a grand finale, and this will be another controversy, but I can see how we can make it pretty comical on this one. Now, this might upset certain fans, But, oh boy, already this thing feels pretty ridiculous, more so than what was portrayed in the upcoming movie, so stay tuned for that. And now everyone, after everything we have discussed, it is now time we end this episode off with the grand finale. And for this grand finale, I know I've talked a lot about some controversies and some pretty shocking stuff, but what I'm about to tell you is going to be the most shocking of them all. The one that you would never think it would ever occur, but yes, this finally did happen, folks. I know it's going to be hard to believe, but the reality is there are people on Twitter who are mad over a movie that has not been released yet. I know, like, surprising, right? I mean, these things only occur on days that end with the letter Y. But in all seriousness, though, there is apparently this controversy that's been going on that, of course, that has made a lot of people mad. And when looking into it, yeah, honestly, it feels pretty understandable as to what's been going on and why people got mad. Even though it's just like a small element, it's something that feels like a pretty big deal. And I know that for some certain fans, this is a make or break deal for this particular movie. And what I am talking about is Saturday Night. Yes, you probably have heard about the upcoming Saturday Night Live movie called Saturday Night, which is a movie directed by Jason Reitman that chronicles the events that occurred before the first episode of Saturday Night Live, or specifically, just to go and read this little excerpt here from my source on Vulture, that it is a dramatized version of the 90 minutes leading up to the premiere of Saturday Night Live in 1975. Now, one special thing about it that has been highlighted is the fact that there is actually someone playing the role of Jim Henson, which in this case here is actually played by Nicholas Brown. And it was very interesting for him to play the part, especially when we have seen some images, which he actually did a good job looking the role. You know, he actually did look like Jim Henson back in the 1970s. And also with his performance as well. Like, he acted like Jim, he looked like Jim. So far, the road was going pretty well with it. But then suddenly things changed when a Crack article came out releasing a review of the movie, considering that it recently had its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival. And I'm just going to go and read you from my source here again on Vulture. It is stated right over here, in the Crack piece, the authors shared their impression of the film from its Toronto International Film Festival screening, noting that Saturday Night's take on Jim Henson may have been the most irksome element of the entire film for me. Henson really only exists as a punchline in the film. His over-the-top cartoonish squareness, in comparison to the hip, freewheeling SNL gang, is repeatedly played for laughs. So essentially, Jim Henson is described as a second banana. The best way to put it is that Jim Henson is portrayed as Bert, while the rest of the SNL crew is portrayed as Ernie. And from there, Muppet fans were not cool with it. And the first one to go and actually highlight this was actually the podcast Commitment, in which they said on Twitter, this review of Saturday Night from Crack pretty much confirms our worst fears about the film. And from there, Muppet fans have been expressing their outrage about their portrayal in this, in which some would say here that Jason Reitman, you will begin to cough in 7 days. Which, oh boy, if this is a reference to what I think it is, like, if you're referencing about Jim Henson's sickness that led to his passing, that's like, oh boy, that is some real anger in there. And then there's another one that says, A movie that tries to make Lorne Michaels look uncool while trying to make Jim Henson look cool is ontologically evil. And then, of course, we do have a comment coming from the Muppet History account in which Joshua states here, maybe it was done out of pettiness, because if you didn't know, Jim ended up with the more successful show, pretty much referencing to the fact that after his failed attempt to be part of the Saturday Night Live crew and the failure of the Land of Gorch, he would then move to London, where he and his team would go on to create The Muppet Show. And the rest, well, is history. I should definitely know. But there's also this one, which honestly I do find to be absolutely hilarious, in which it says, you don't want to make an enemy out of the Muppet stands. They are worse than Taylor stands. They will send you a present that looks like a nicely cooked fish, but it's a bomb. Please be careful. This thing right here, honestly, I really like, because it really is like the most Muppet-like threat that you could imagine. And I could totally see Muppet fans do something like this. Like, if they want to go and send out a threat to someone, that they would go and create a bomb and try to disguise it like as a really nice meal, that they would go and deliver it as if it's like freaking HelloFresh. So honestly, that is pretty funny. But back to what I was talking about, though. Honestly, it is interesting with what's been going on, and then seeing how Jim Henson is actually portrayed, which, oh, by the way, there is a confirmation from the Vulture article. Even the person who wrote this article actually did state that this actually is the case. So we do have a second opinion on this, in which she states here, as a Muppet fan who had the chance to see the film, I can confirm that Henson is indeed portrayed like sort of an out-of-touch loser, more akin to the network censor character than any of the other creatives working on the show. He pops up periodically throughout the film to meekly tell Michaels, played by Gabriel LaBelle, about the way the writers are mistreating him, leaving his Muppets in suggestive and violent poses, and refusing to write the script. Worst of all, Frank Oz is frequently shown near him in the background of the scenes, the two of them appearing like fish out of water with their Muppet rig headbands, but he isn't given a single word to say throughout the film. So to add insult to injury, like not only did they portray Jim Henson like a loser, but also they add Frank Oz to the mix so that he can also be made fun of as well. So the big question is, like, why would they go and do this? Why is it that Jason Reitman and the team who would make Saturday Night Live, like, why would they go and portray Jim Henson in such a pathetic light? Now, well, there might be a reason, though, and maybe it could be the fact that they're trying to explain this from the perspective of Lorne Michaels and the actors of Saturday Night Live. So to give you like a quick Muppet history of like Jim Henson's involvement with Saturday Night Live, during that time, he was very much hated during the production. And like they would go and insinuate, they hated working with Jim. They hated working on the, they hated working on the production of like his little skits with the Land of Gorch. And like just all around, they did not respect Jim Henson whatsoever. And so from there, his segments, The Land of Gorch, were very short-lived, and they were even they're still looked down upon from Muppet fans to this day, that they feel very much out of place compared to what Jim Henson would go and normally create. So in that regards, like as I said before, it could be the fact that the movie is just explaining from the perspective of the people who made Saturday Night Live what it is today, from the perspective of people like Lorne Michaels, Chevy Chase, John Belushi, and several others. And from there, they want to try to go and present their resentment for Jim Henson and the Muppets and during all that. So that could be the explanation. But keep in mind that I'm not trying to defend the film. I'm just trying to find a reason why they would go out of their way to actually go and portray Jim Henson like that, where what they would do, how they would go and do that creative choice. Now, keep in mind, as I am recording this, I have not seen Saturday Night Live. I wasn't there at the Toronto Film Festival, and also, as I am recording this, it is not out yet. But to be very honest, I don't think I want to anymore. You guys know me, I'm a major Muppet fan, and I've been curious as to how Jim Henson would be portrayed in this movie. But now hearing that, they would portray him as a joke, that they would portray him not as an antagonistic, but as someone that people shouldn't be rooting for, that really does feel like it feels like a turnoff for me. And honestly, I don't know if I want to watch it anymore. Like, regardless of what the reception would be or what the word of mouth is, I don't feel like I want to go and actually see Jim Henson be made fun of, to be looked down upon and stuff like that. I don't feel like I want to go and actually see that on the big screen in particular, especially if they want to use that, like, not even portray Jim Henson as a villain, but as a godforsaken joke, try to be all like, take a look at the virgin Jim Henson talking to the Chad Lorne Michaels. I don't want to watch that, and I don't think people want to watch that, especially with how Jim Henson is such a beloved icon. Like, he's one of those rare people, like, in history that people would look upon and, like, not have anything negative to say about it. In fact, you would receive backlash if you would say, if you would speak negatively about Jim Henson. Like, if you would say something like, friggin' Jim Henson sucks, he's so woke with his things like the Muppets and Fraggle Rock and Sesame Street, this guy sucks. You would get an earful on social media. Like, you would be like a complete laughingstock. So the fact that Jason Reitman would go out of his way to portray Jim Henson like that, honestly, like, it does feel like a disappointment to hear. And I mean, in my opinion, I feel like there could have been ways that you can, like, work around that per se. Like, like, just thinking about it, like, if you are going to make a Saturday Night Live movie and you are also going to include Jim Henson as well, I feel like that's kind of tough to, like, how you could go and do so. Like, one way, if you're going to go and portray Jim Henson not in an insulting way and still have it be about SNL, like, one way that could have been, like, interesting is if you would do Saturday Night as an anthology film. You would do it in the perspective of like several of its members, that you would have the perspective of Lorne Michaels. You would then have the perspective of Chevy Chase. You would have the perspective of people like John Belushi. And then you would have the perspective of Jim Henson and how his experience was. That would have been an interesting choice. That would have also been very interesting to make Saturday Night really stand out and give a spotlight to see each of the people in there. But unfortunately, it doesn't really seem to be the case. So honestly, I think with all this, my interest to go and check out Saturday Night, like, it's been gone. It had my attention for a while, but if you're going to go and, like, make fun of one of my idols just for the reason that his contribution to that particular show didn't really work out, I'm out of this, man. I'm sorry. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go and pass this on to the chat wall, and I'd like to know, what do you think about it? How do you feel knowing that Jim Henson's portrayal is allegedly like a laughingstock in Saturday Night? Let me know what you think about this. All right, let's see now. While I myself am not familiar with Saturday Night Live, it's kind of unfortunate seeing them portray Jim Henson as a joke, and it does kind of feel insulting to Muppet fans and his works. So it's definitely going to be disappointing. Also, Matt, on a brighter note, tomorrow, for God's sake, sorry folks, I really need to go and check up on that. Anyways, on a brighter note, tomorrow is finally the release of Epic Mickey Rebrush, so I know you're excited for that. Well, I mean, I think you can pretty much tell that I am excited. All right, anyways, let's see. Look, I'm giving that SNL movie a chance because I'm a big SNL fan right here. kind of odd to hear about how Jim Henson was portrayed in that movie despite not seeing it. Who knows? It could be out of context or not. I'm watching it. Exactly. I think, like, it is the most fair thing that you can say. Technically, we haven't seen the movie itself. So at this point, like, maybe in the future I'll be watching it. It's just nowadays it's not really a big priority. So we'll see with how that goes. But I don't know. Maybe it is taken out of context. Maybe there is more to it. But ultimately, we'll have to wait and see with how things go when the movie does come out later, which I believe is going to be somewhere in mid-October that it's going to have its wide release, but we'll see. Anyways, in the words of Peter Griffin, who could think of just a horrible thing? I just thought that The Land of Gorch was enough, but really, dude, who was bringing up the idea of a dorky Jim Henson, and how come that Muppet fans do a product of HelloFresh, what? And how it was funny. Anyways, also, why does people still use Twitter? I will be happy that someone will say, this thing blows. Does somebody say, yeah, okay, I got you now. But yeah, also, I just want to warn you now, from what I've heard, apparently when it comes to Twitter, they say that now people that you have blocked will now see your posts. So if that's not a reason why you should leave Twitter, I think that definitely is, because hearing that kind of idea, if that is actually true, if that's becoming actually real, yeah, honestly, please leave Twitter as soon as you can, because it's about to get even more toxic. All right, I think I'll read, there's not a whole lot that's being said here, so I'll read one more comment before we head out here. I won't make any current accusations on the film, as it has not been released yet. However, I find it troubling because I am a Jim Henson fan, even if the film could be just satire. Actually, okay, hold on a sec. There are a few more comments coming up. Let's go. Let's see here. Saturday night, I saw a trailer for that movie when I went to see Beetlejuice. That's the story of how the Saturday Night Live TV series came to be. Honestly, I am confused as a Bluey character who breaks the fourth wall by looking at their viewers, and they don't even know what happened, let alone what's going on. Because of that moment, that is exactly what I am feeling about as of right now. All right. Let's see now. I might have missed the bit of content for this, but I totally understand the issue of the insult of an icon as much as Jim Henson. However, if anything, I don't think that it's too much of a big deal. Since it isn't about him, I don't think it's worth it. But if I could consider any idea for this could be to bring in the but if I could consider any idea from this, could be bring the actor into his own movie. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I mean, like, to be fair, like, these are speculations so far. This is word from people who have seen the movie. And I mean, the true judgment will be when the film does come out. So we'll wait and see on that. And with that said, that should do it for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And oh boy, what a big episode this was. And I want to say thank you all so much for joining me on this wild adventure and to go and help me out to cover with some of these major news stories. So tune in next time for possibly more wild updates and more wild animation news that will be coming to us. And also, I just want to go and say, if you guys enjoyed your time here on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, then don't forget to go and subscribe to the AniMat Live Twitch channel and the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel. And at the same time, if you are listening to this in whatever podcast service you're listening to, then don't forget to go and follow me there, whether it be on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, and more. And with that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.